Hi guys, Tyler here, back with another great special edition on Focus on Astrophotography. Today's episode is Dear Mrs. Hot Pixel. I love that title. It's a funny title. Our special guest today is Simon Lewis. We're going to discuss equipment issues, mainly camera side, and some other post-processing and any other type of things. We're both customer service representatives for obviously Explore Scientific, Simon ZWO, and we've compiled a list of mainly issues that customers have that they don't know quite how to troubleshoot or fix themselves, and they mainly just jump the gun before trying to diagnose. So we're going to try to give you some diagnosing techniques on how to determine if your equipment is actually faulty or if it's just possible user error, which I hate to say it. I've done it. Simon's called me out and done it because I forget to turn power on mounts and other things. So he calls me out on it. Some of it's about 99% user error, which it happens. We get this nice shiny new thing and we're overwhelmed with it, and then we forget how to use it. But Simon, appreciate you coming back, and I'm glad that we're able to discuss this because we've both been back and forth on these particular topics, and it's amazing how quick they just jump the gun saying that the equipment's faulty. It's literally almost instantaneous. It's camera's bad. I need a new one. Well, and that's why as customer service reps, we always, well, if you tried to do some troubleshooting, nope, the camera's faulty. I'm sending it back. So, Simon, how do you handle some of the crazy questions that you get over at ZWO?
Take a walk around the block before I answer them. So I wouldn't say they use error. I think a lot of it is not understanding the equipment, not understanding what you're seeing. And a lot of it is a learning process and actually being able to look at something and know what you're looking at and go, I can identify what that is. So all of these topics and questions that we're going to walk through here are they're typical topics that we get every day on the support desk. And a lot of the time, they don't actually require an email. It's just a little bit of misunderstanding. So you can basically self-help if you've got a little bit of knowledge as to what you've got. And as I say, a lot of it is you've got some new equipment, don't understand what you're seeing, and then think, oh, my camera's defective. Actually, dead out of the box cameras or faulty cameras are a very small percentage of
Very
the
rare.
cameras that we sell, and most of them that you can fix them yourself, or when you look at them and go, "Oh, I understand what I'm seeing." So it's
So, some of the questions that I've gotten, mainly about hot pixels or dead pixels. How do you, or as some people say, it's developed the measles. The measles. How do you? Oh no. Well, technically, the measles are what, the colder spots. When I see a cold spot on the camera, is that what the measles is on that one?
so.
If I look,
You follow the script that I gave you,
yeah, yeah.
honestly. So we quite often get customers calling in
Mm-hmm.
and they say, "I've got black spots on my camera." Or white spots, and sometimes they go away, sometimes they don't. And the answer to that is more than likely what they are seeing is ice forming on the sensor. And it's particularly bad if you're in a very humid environment. So, we have had a few people emailing us from
Mm-hmm.
Florida, for example, and they've got really humid evenings. They're outside imaging. We've actually put some controls in place in the ASCOM drivers to actually slow the cooling down, actually, to try and alleviate this. But I would say if you're getting ice spots appearing, it'll look like dust or as I say, the measles across the
Yeah.
sensor. Sometimes it appears and will then disappear. Sometimes it stays. The answer to this is it's not unusual. The best way to deal with that is to cool much slower and to cool in steps. So, maybe cool to just a couple of degrees, like 2 degrees or something like that. Let that cool before you start imaging, and then cool down in steps. And with a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the modern cameras, you don't need to go crazy in terms of temperature to get
Mm-hmm.
low noise image. So they don't have to be like -30 to get the best image, and you can quite often get away with that. Now, older cameras, if you are suffering from this, potentially you may need to refresh the desiccant in the ZWO camera, and there's a guide on the
Mm-hmm.
website for that as well. And you can buy spare desiccants, etc. So um, there's no particular rhyme or reason for these in terms of sensor size, or particular cameras are worse than others. But yes, cooling slower and letting that sensor stabilize is the best way to do that.
What about a dew strap? I mean, I know some ZWO cameras have a little built-in dew heater, essentially.
Yeah,
Uh, what if adding an external dew strap would help?
yeah.
If you keep it
You
low as
can
far as
actually buy an
power.
accessory. Yeah, yeah. You can actually buy an accessory for those. The later cameras, the bigger cameras, have
Mm-hmm.
polyamide heaters built into the top of the camera, and you can turn those on and off from software. So that's also something to check. Make sure that you've got
Mm-hmm.
that turned on. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've got one of the older cameras that doesn't have that heater, you can buy an add-on um,
Mm-hmm.
that just raises the temperature of the actual sensor housing, not the actual sensor itself, and that can help. Um,
Okay.
so
Just
yeah,
kind of
that
stabilize the
will
air that's in there.
may also help reduce um, the dewing and fogging of the sensor as well. So
So it's kind of like a telescope. I mean, some people recommend putting dew straps on. Some people I've seen put them on the dew shields. I've seen people put them behind the dew shields. So is there a specific spot where you'd have to put it on the camera, or is it just right there where the sensor is? As far as just the
usually
dew
on the
strap
sensor
for the
housing, you're
shield.
not going to get to the sensor because the sensor's buried deep inside the camera.
True.
So yeah, having it on the front face of the camera is the best option,
Okay.
and that will help. The G straps on telescopes, for me, the best place for that is actually on the G shield. in front of the lens. If you try and stick a 10-watt heater behind the dew shield, you're just going to heat the tube up, and actually the cold air is damp air is on the glass at the front, so it's much better to have the heater on the dew shield before the lens cell, so that you're actually heating the air very slightly inside the dew shield.
Makes
and
sense.
don't have it too hot, and she'll have wobbly images. It's like you looking down a road on a hot day. So you've got warmer air versus colder air outside, and then you get disturbances in the air around there. So so you want it warm enough that it's gonna, stop dew on the lens cell, but not so hot that you're, if you put your hand in there and it's really warm, it's probably too hot.
It's too hot. Probably way too hot. So that's one thing is always to make sure that you either check your desiccant pad, which there's a walkthrough on ZWO's website themselves. Check to make sure that the dew heater ability, if your camera is new enough or that it's big enough, that it's on, because I've ran into the measles or the cold spots or the ice on the sensor, which I didn't have the anti-dew turned on with my ASI Air, and it took a while for it to go away, because it's not instant. It's a gradual building of temperature in that housing where that sensor sits, so it kind of keeps the temperature not below
it's
freezing.
Only 3 or 4 watt heater. It's not a very big heat. It's just enough to give it a
just
little
enough
boost.
to kind of counterbalance it and boost it, just so there's no frost on the front glass, because that's all it's picking up is just the frost on the front glass of the sensor. I doubt there's any water on the sensor. It's literally just on the front optics or the front coating glass.
People say, why is it forming little spots? And it's just surface tension is actually dragging that humidity into a little ball, and then it freezes.
Correct. So it's easily avoidable. If you just check a couple of steps and go from there. So what if you have a camera that doesn't get below a certain degree? I know with the ASI Air and any other software, you can yank those cameras down to -20, but mine will never reach -20, and nor do I want it to reach -20, because I want the life expectancy of the camera to last longer than a year, because you're wearing out everything by yanking it all the way down to -20. But what if it never gets below -5? Is there anything I need to look for power wise, or is there something that a consumer can do to troubleshoot that issue when it's running at 100%?
We often get users calling in and saying, look, my camera won't cool below -5. The cooler's running at 100%. And you just touched on something there that's very interesting. So the coolers in these cameras are solid state devices, these thermoelectric coolers. They're what are called Peltier devices. So basically, you run power through them one way, and one side of the cooler is cold, the other side actually is hot. That's why when you run the cooler on a camera and you feel the fan outlet, it's actually slightly warm. That's because it's dissipating that cold. So it's dissipating the hot air where you've got the cold going to the other side. They are solid state devices. There's no issue running your camera. No issue running your camera at 100%, the cooler at 100%, and you won't wear it out. It's a solid state device. The mean time between failure on these devices is, tens of thousands of hours. So you don't need to worry about that. But there's an interesting thing is we quite often get people saying, I want to, my camera says it will cool to -35 and I can only get to -5. So there's a difference in these in between ambient temperature and the sensor temperature. So they will cool up to about minus 30, minus 35 below ambient. So if you have a 30-degree evening outside, and this is Celsius, by the way, if you have a 30-degree evening, you are not going to reach minus 35 on the sensor. You will be able to reach maybe 5, maybe 0. And it also depends on humidity as well. If you've got very high humidity, obviously that heat index is much larger.
Higher.
So, so if you have a 20-degree night outside and you're imaging, you are not going to be able to get more than maybe minus 10, minus 15. Now, that's not a problem. With a lot of the modern sensors, there is very little to be gained from going to, say, 0 degrees to minus 20. There's a very small increment in noise reduction. So if you can only get to 0 or minus 5, take it. You won't have a problem. Of course, if you're in like New Zealand where you can get to minus 20 even in the middle of the summer because it's always cold outside, great. You then choose something that you can get to, or have 2 different profiles, one for summer, one for winter. So if you can get, you get much, much colder than we do, you get minus 10, minus 15 degree nights. Well, if you can get to minus 20, you hardly need any cooling whatsoever. But in the summer, if you've got a 25 degree evening, then you may have to choose something different. But you won't get to minus 35 actual sensor temperature, and the readout in software is the sensor temperature, not the outside, and there is a difference in that. So,
I'll never reach negative 20 where I'm at. Maybe in the winter, like it's got to be.
You will do in the winter.
It's got to be negative outside in the winter. So I usually just stick around negative 10. It's good for the summer.
And that's fine. Negative. Negative 10's good.
Yeah, I mean that's my good just platform. It's good for winter and summer and spring and fall, and I just stick with it.
And you'll be fine.
I mean,
is there an
actual
from processed images? There's not a lot of noise. So
I mean, is there an actual reason to go to negative 20 at all? Does it change the image structure? Is it clear? Is there an honest difference?
Well, there is a difference because if you look at the sensor curve, you can see that the noise at 0, minus 5, minus 10, minus 20 keeps reducing. So there is a difference, but the incremental difference between 0 to minus 5 to minus 10 is on some cameras very, very small. If you look at the curve of noise on, say, ASI 2600, the noise difference between 0, minus 5, minus 10, minus 20 is small, but it is a reduction, right? So if you're able to get to minus 20 and it's not a problem for you, then why would you not use it? Because you are getting a reduction, as small as it may be. I'll take every single fraction of a percentage when I'm imaging. If I can improve it 100%. By a percentage, I will.
100%. Well, cool. Neato. So there's a couple. I know these can be processed out. And how do you get rid of hot pixels? Because there are some cameras that produce hot pixels, the red and the blues, and the greens. I just got one, and Simon, my image is showing me red, greens, and blues all over the place. How do I get rid of them?
Yeah,
this is defective.
So that's a common. That is a common. For one-shot color camera owners, we quite often get newcomers emailing in saying, "Hey, my image is full of red, green, and blue pixels. What's the problem here?" So there is a misunderstanding about CMOS cameras. One of the other questions we get a lot is, "Oh, my camera's got hot pixels, therefore it must be faulty." All CMOS sensors will give you some kind of defect in terms of pixels, whether that's a hot pixel, or a cold pixel. And what we mean by that is either the pixel is turned fully on or it's turned fully off. So it'll either be white or black. Now, in the term of a color camera, that could be obviously red, green, or blue, because one-shot color has the 3 different colors in there. So you may end up with pixels that are red, green, or blue and are stuck on or stuck off. It's quite normal to get a percentage of pixels in there that are hot or cold, and it's not a defect. Even if you buy a mass-produced mirrorless camera off the shelf, it will have hot and cold pixels, but it's using software when it's actually taking that image and saving it onto the camera. It's using software to remove those hot pixels. So the way to get rid of around them is to do a number of things. A is to use calibration, and use calibration frames, use dark frames, use software that has pixel rejection in there, so you can actually identify in software when you're integrating them that they are hot pixels. So that's something else. And also you can do things like dither, which we've got another question on. Dither is moving the mount a slight amount, every frame or so, and then that will allow the software to actually identify what is hot and what is cold. But for me, the most important thing is to use those calibration frames, but to recognize that isn't a defect. It's something that will happen. It used to happen on CCD cameras. You would have whole lines out of the sensor, because actually in that technology, if there was a problem with a pixel, it stopped the whole line in the sensor working. Yep. So exactly the same way. So, but yeah, it's not a defect. If you've got hot cold pixels, calibrate, use pixel rejection, and that's the other thing, is a lot of the I hate to say it, a lot of people use Deep Sky Stacker as newcomers, and I understand why. The problem is that pixel rejection on these tools are really they're old, they haven't been updated, and they're not the best. So it's better to, if you're going to get into this hobby, put some effort into learning and buying a proper tool, and that will really, really help you with calibration and rejection of pixels. Sometimes as well, you have to use different pixel rejection techniques. So sometimes you have to play around a little as well. In Pixel Insight, for example, you have cosmetic correction, which will help with that. And you also have pixel rejection algorithms as well. Sometimes you have to play around a little to find the best rejection method for your data.
Nice.
Simple.
And Wade Prunty with a quote or message, dither or die.
Dither or die. Got it.
Dither or die.
Yeah.
Man, I'm almost through my gallon of water. Ugh. So hot pixels are fairly common in one-shot colors. So it sounds like it's an easy process to get rid of them, either by dithering or with processing pixel rejection. I'm trying to think of, no, that's about it. And same thing with monochrome. It's either white or black. That's it.
Same way. So you get hot pixels in monochrome cameras too. So you need to do the same. Do that pixel rejection, dither. Wade's right. Dither or die. But a lot of people say don't use calibration. I don't have to use calibration frames, but then you need to do some really good pixel rejection and use that. But,
and that's my actual next question. Is I've heard this time and time again. Oh, my buddy's got this camera and it doesn't need calibration frames. Is he right or is he wrong?
So I would say
recommended.
There's a number of ways of thinking about this. If you're an experienced astrophotographer, then you know how to drive software, and you know how the results that you're going to get for a certain action within your processing software. Potentially, you can get away with certain parts of the calibration process. You can cut corners. For a newcomer, if you're a beginner, my advice is follow the status quo. Use the calibration frames. And look, you can create libraries of darks and store them away and upgrade them every 6 to 12 months or whatever. Don't shortcut them. Because until you actually know what you're doing and you know the results that you're going to get, and you're happy and understanding the software, then you can end up with odd results. So I would say, calibration frames, potentially you can cut corners on them. And certain cameras require different types of calibration. So normally you would have a dark frame, you would have a flat, and you would have a bias. And using those three, that removes hot cold pixels, noise, and vignetting and all the rest of it from your images to give you the best image you can. Certain cameras have amp glow in the corners of the images. Now, that wasn't one of the questions, but that's another question I get often is people ring in and say, oh, my sensor's faulty, I've got this big star-shaped glow in the corner of the image. Some sensors do have amp glow, and all it is, it's basically picking up the infrared signature of the electronics around the sensor. It's just an unfortunate fact of life. Most of the sensors that we use aren't designed for astrophotography. Most of the sensors that we're using are actually designed for surveillance cameras or medical imaging, for example, those kind of applications. So we have to kind of put up with these. There is a way around that, and you'll find these, this amp glow appears in your flats. Now the flats, sometimes that will carry through into the image when you've calibrated it. The best way to deal with that is what we call, you can either call it dark flat or flat dark. There is two schools of thought, and I'm not going to get into the argument around, which is right, which is wrong. But what you're doing here is you're calibrating the flats with a dark frame, i.e. a frame that is taken with the telescope cap on and the camera cap on so that there is no light on the sensor. So in that frame, you will see the amp glow in the corner. By calibrating the flats with that dark frame, you can remove the amp glow out of the flat. So then you can use the flat to calibrate your image without that impacting it. So I would say, yes, you can cut corners with calibration if you know what you're doing and you know the impact. So for example, some people don't use dark frames, and yeah, sure, you potentially can. If you know how to do good pixel rejection or cosmetic correction and you've got the right tools. But I would say as a beginner, don't do it. Take darks, take bias,
learn the basics,
flats, learn the basics. And then when you're experienced, then you can start to cut corners where you know that, if I don't do this, then that's the outcome.
I can do this.
That's my view on it. But I would say for a beginner, follow the well chosen path. Even if you've got a very low noise camera, like a 2600, like a 533, you will still have hot cold pixels. You'll still have noise in there somewhere. So yeah.
Oh, probably did.
So I got a question. So you guys are mostly dealing with deep sky stuff, nebula, things like that. But the people first starting out, they shoot obviously lunar stuff. It's really easy. But one of the photos that I've got, it's got these different colors on it, and Kent was claiming that is metals and whatnot on the soil.
Yep. Minerals.
How can you get that photo? What do you got to do that?
You have to manipulate it in post-processing.
Post-processing, so you're just tone mapping different colors and different schemes to bring it out. Ghost voice is back. Oh, I don't hear that, Wade. Sorry.
No, he's talking about
Paul.
me.
Sorry. Yeah, gotcha now. We did have some problems with echoes, which was interesting. So so that's all about post-processing and assigning, tone mapping and shading to bring those out. And it's called a mineral moon. And what you're seeing is the different minerals are in the rock on the surface. But that's just a post-processing.
So, is it in the post-processing? What are they doing exactly? Do you know?
Yeah, so they're bringing out different levels and different shades and different tones to bring out those areas. I'm not a planetary imager, so I can't tell you exactly how they process those mineral moons.
But I mean, your camera's taking pictures of them, and that's why you can manipulate with post-processing with the saturation, some of the vibrance, the tonal colors, and you can bring out those blues, the darker blues, and the more.
I've never been able to. I didn't even know it was possible.
Oh,
and
gosh,
I mess with photographs constantly.
Well, if it's
have a look for processing of it's called a mineral moon, Paul. That's what you need to look for.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
All right.
I'm interested to see. Go take a picture this weekend, Paul, and then learn about mineral moon editing, and then I want to see what you can do.
Yeah.
Because I got moon shots as well. So we've talked about calibration frames, hot pixels. Camera does it cool. I have a lot of red and blues, and I believe it was the measles or cold spots is what I'll call it. Stack tons of data, and then turn the saturation up to 110. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it real quick. So, say we've got the calibration frames done now, but now I have these long streaks in my image. How do I get rid of those long streaks? I have a feeling there's going to be a certain audience member that's going to say "dither or die."
He's right. So what you're looking at there is likely to be what's called walking noise, and this is basically the software has been unable to remove the noise entirely because it thinks it's part of the actual data of the image. So what Wade is talking about there is that you basically dither, which is a software setting within the capture software, and then what you're going to do is that you're going to take an image and then you're going to move the telescope very slightly, a few pixels, and then for the next image, you're going to move it again, and you're going to move it again between frame and again between frame. So when you come to actually stack this, when you actually run through the images one by one, you can see that the data will move around very, very slightly, just a few pixels. But that's enough then that the software can work out what was noise and what was data in a better way. And that will get rid of that sort of streaks of noise. What you're seeing is basically as the telescope's moving through the night, the data pattern is following the rotation of your scope. So you end up with this sort of streak down it. So, walking noise. And Wade is absolutely right. Dither or die. Because if you're going to do deep sky, long exposure, then you really want to be talking about how to dither. Quite simple.
Dither is
easy fix. If you're guiding already, you just need to change one setting really is enable dithering, and then, it just takes a few seconds between frames or do it every, modern cameras like, ASI 2600s, etc. You could probably get away with dithering every 5 frames or so just to show it up. But I dither every frame and it only takes a couple seconds. So over a whole night of imaging, it adds a couple of minutes, but that's fine.
So there's one funny one. I've had a customer call in and says, "Yeah, when I start imaging, all the image orientation looks right, and then at the end of the image night, it's upside down. Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. Why is my image upside down?
It probably doesn't, but it does, because if you're using an equatorial mount and you do what's called a Meridian Flip, so when you start off, the telescope will be on this side of the mount, but once it gets to the meridian, you don't want to be counterweight up. That's not a good place to be. The bottom of the telescope can run into the tripod or the pier. So what you do is you Meridian Flip, which basically flips the telescope to the other side of the mount and then comes back up. Now, if you think about it, if you're imaging on this side of the meridian and then you flip the mount, then the camera is upside down. So it goes the other way.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a problem. Because the software, when you do star alignment, it will know and align those stars and actually flip the image back. So not a problem. But you'll be amazed at how many people email us and go, "Hey, my images are upside down. Is this going to calibrate? Is it going to be able to integrate these correctly?" And the answer is yes, it will. And it's quite normal. And actually, you want to be doing Meridian Flips because you don't want to be running telescopes into tripod legs. That gets expensive.
Or piers.
So, yeah.
Or piers.
Yeah,
or
a pier.
Or a roof.
You had to bring that up, didn't you? You really had to bring that up.
Sore, isn't it? And you weren't even imaging.
I tell you what, my Explore Scientific 127 is it put a big dent in my observatory roof, but hey, the scope's good.
It's built like a tank. So some of the other questions.
Not safe to work that video.
No. So
people of nervous dispositions should not watch your observatory roof taking out your ES 127.
For your Skywatcher 120 Esprit. Questions. I've had a couple customers that are trying to do flats, and they notice some weird dark areas big round blobs that are in them. Is this the worst when I see that? But it's worst when I use dual band filters. Why? Why is it worse? And what can I do to fix it? Is it involving a easy technique, or is it something more technical that I have to constantly do?
So this is an interesting one because it's one we get quite often. People sending in this. So first off, flats are there. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking an image with a light source in front of it. That could be some people use the sky, some people use a light behind a t-shirt, some people use iPad or an Android tablet, some people use the ceiling and put a white panel on the ceiling of the observatory. Some people buy proper flat panels. So what you're looking to do is you're looking to put a light source that is uniform on the top of the scope, and actually then take an image. And what that's going to show you, it's going to show you areas of light drop-off, for example, what we call vignetting. So uneven illumination of the sensor. You'll see also in there dust bunnies as well. So dust bunnies are these small round circles and discs that you will see in the flats. That probably means that you need to clean your filters, Tyler.
Yeah. I did clean them.
Yeah.
It's nice.
They look like a pigsty, man. Dear, oh dear. Tyler needs a bigger water bottle.
It's over a gallon. It's over a gallon, so I have to drink one every day. So.
So flats will show vignetting, they'll show dust bunnies, poor illumination, and even an illumination. And then during processing, that will then correct those and apply correction to areas where you've got maybe a lesser amount of illumination and bring that area up, try and even it out. The one thing that happens, certainly with these dual band filters, is that on some cameras, the filter at HA or at O3. So these dual band filters are usually hydrogen alpha or oxygen 3 filters for narrowband imaging on a color camera. When you look at these on a color camera, sometimes you can see mottling in there. There's a couple of cameras, the 294, for example, there has some kind of interaction between the sensor cover glass and the coating versus the dual band filter, and you can end up with some weird patterns in the image. And these are more than they're normal, and if you process these out in the normal way, you won't see these. But yes, they do appear. So you will see some weird effects in flats. That's what you're doing them for. And the idea is basically to bring that out of the calibration process and adjust for it. So don't worry about, donuts in there, dust bunnies, darker areas, patterns. They will all calibrate out. But the one thing I will say is, if you're going to do flats, personally, if you're going to do astrophotography, one of the things that I did when I first got involved in this was to go buy a flat panel. So I have a Spiker flat panel. The other thing that during the flats process can bring out these more is that if you have a panel that is slanted more towards the red, then some of these patterns can become more obvious. And I know that a lot of people have trouble processing 294 images. That's really, you need a good light source for these cameras. And I would say it's a small amount of money to go and buy a proper panel and a good light source that is well balanced. What I mean is the red, green, and blue line up. They're almost aligned in the image. They're not like a panel that is warm, i.e. has lots of red, or is cold and has lots of blue. They're well aligned. And get one with a dimmer, so you can turn it down. You want to be aiming on a ZWO camera about 28,000 in ADU, and which is about sort of midway in the histogram. So you will be well exposed, and you're not overexposed in the flats, you're not underexposed, and you're well balanced in color. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, we got some questions from Petka.
How do I try and
do you want to crack through these other ones, and then we'll come back to the questions?
Yeah. Pekka, just keep popping them up, and then we'll get to them at the end of the show.
I'm trying to get through to get the comments to come through, but there's something going on. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm working on it I'm working on it behind the scenes.
That's fine. It's fine. You're doing good. So say I purchase a new cooled camera. It's defective out of the box. Can't connect to any software. The PC just doesn't see it. A couple of things that I could possibly think of is power supply. It's not getting enough juice. The USB cable could be defective, not the camera itself. I've bought a lot of ZWO equipment, cameras especially, and not one out of the 5 I have been defective out of the box. Cables, it's questionable. It's very questionable. What would you recommend customers to do some troubleshooting tips for them, so they can make sure it's not technically the camera, we'll say?
So one of the key things to note, certainly on the ZWO cameras since the start of 2022, is that the cooled cameras require 12 volts now, all of them. There was a change to the main board design at the early part of the year. That was done because quite often on the bigger cameras like the 2600s, 533, the 071, etc., the USB 3 power that the PC can supply is not enough to run the camera. So if you take a half-second shot, it'll download fine. You take a 3-second shot, you get an image exposure failure and the camera disconnects. So to get around that, now all of the ZWO cooled cameras need 12 volts connected. So that's the one thing to remember. So yes, 12 volt power. If you're using an ASI Air and you're powering the camera, make sure that the camera power port is turned on in the software. That's another one.
That is another
there
one.
is look, there is a ton of software on the market. Not all of it gets updated in the same at the same time as ZWO upgrade their cameras. So I would say if you're having problems with cameras, check power, check the cables, and then go away and download ASI Studio, which is a freebie on the ZWO website. That is our baseline test software. If it doesn't work in there, then you can give us a call. But I would say check cable, check power, check device manager in Windows, for example. Is it appearing? When you plug the camera in, do you hear the bing? If you hear the bing, then the USB is actually being recognized, then there's something else going on. And then if after all of that you're still struggling, then reach out to us. But if you come to us and you've done all that, it will speed up the process of getting you fixed a lot easier than us then having to go back, two or three email exchanges to try and diagnose what's going on. But yeah, check Windows. Don't forget that with the ZWO cameras, there is 2 sets of drivers. There is a USB driver, which is actually to get the camera recognized by the PC. From a USB device perspective. And then there is an ASCOM driver as well, which is actually to get the images and the camera control into your imaging software. Of course, if you're using ASI Air, all of that's already built in. You just need to connect the camera and then hit connect, and then you will see it. Yeah, but it's so often we get people mailing us and going, hey, my camera, I can't get connected, doesn't work, dead out of the box. Very few of the cameras that we have are dead out of the box. Mostly it's simple error. I won't say user error. It's lack of experience for mostly. Once you get into it and you recognize what's going on, you know where to look, you know the right parts of software to install. Generally, after that, it's you'll be able to diagnose it yourself.
Nice. Well, that was a good little questionnaire or whatever you would like to call it.
Yeah, there's one thing about that, Tyler, as well. When if you do reach out to us for help, and you know this and I know this, please don't write, "My camera doesn't work. Help." That actually and we get it, right? We get it. Oh, my ASI Air doesn't work. Help. Please, first off, check the website. A lot of the questions that we get, the product pages for the products actually have very detailed information in there. They will tell you physical sizes, thread sizes, back focus, which is how far back the sensor is from the front of the camera, to help you with your back focus calculations. There are diagrams in there to help work out how to get 55 millimeter back spacing, which is the most common back focus requirement out of flatteners and reducers, etc. Which component connects to which, how to connect a large off-axis guided to a 4/3 camera like a 294 or a 533. All of the instructions are in there, the diagrams. Have a look through those and check the website for a start. People say, what's the voltage range of an ASI Air? Well, it's on the website. How much of power can I draw off a port? All of this information is online, and you can go hunt this yourself versus sending an email to support and then waiting for a day or so while we pick it up out of the queue to tell something that you could have found in 30 seconds. So do a little bit of self-help, do a little bit of digging, go check the product page. We've got a lot of user guides and support guides on the website too. How to change desiccants, how to clean, how to restore software, etc. Then when you've done all that, please log a ticket if you're still stuck, but do tell us a little bit more than help.
Nope.
If you come to me and you've changed the cables, changed the power, loaded in some software like ASI Studio, still getting issues, that helps me. Helps us a lot. We'll have a lot easier way of fixing you if that's how you come to. So do a little bit of research, do a little bit of testing yourself, and then tell us what you've done in your support ticket, and we'll be able to help you real fix. And look, we do get defective cameras. They're sensitive devices, and they go through the imaginations of the postal services and courier services. So we do get the occasional defective one, but if you've done all this beforehand.
So there's a couple of questions. I believe this one's already been answered that the ominous voice has posted on the screen. How do I stack a single DSLR image together, not deep sky objects, but like sun or lunar? And Wade told him auto stacker is the best option. It'll do single images. It'll do a movie. It'll even take a movie, break it down into single images. Auto stacker, honestly, for lunar, solar, is the better way to go. I've tried fire capture. I haven't tinkered with it enough, so I can't really weigh in about fire capture. I always just go into auto stacker and then Registacks. I'm done. I don't mess with it anymore after that.
The sharp cap and fire capture are good. Capturing video, for example. Pekka's on about DSLRs, and with DSLRs, auto stackers, Registacks, PIPP, all those ones are really good. And it's a lot of these ones. It's very much like processing in deep sky. Mm-hmm. Some people like Astro Pixel processor, some people like Cyril, some people like PixInsight. Some people like Photoshop and Deep Sky Stacker. It's how does your brain work? How do you like it? And then what works best for you in the way that your brain interacts with the software. Everybody's different.
So one interesting question, I already know what the answer is going to be, is, Simon, is ZWO going to come out with a Celestron adapter for the ASI Air? So all the Celestron accessories can be used like the AEF or the Star Sense.
The answer to that is most likely no. The model for ASI Air is that it's supported using ZWO cameras and ZWO accessories. The reason being is that really helps us in making a very stable platform, and some manufacturers, the drivers are really hard to manage. We have a real problem with, as an example, with like Celestron AVX. There are so many different driver versions of the motor controller, the hand controller, and that's really, really hard to manage. So the business model, I know I don't drive the business, so we don't get to influence that, but the model for the ASI Air is ZWO cameras, ZWO focuser, filter wheels, and a limited number of mirrorless cameras and DSLRs, and that really depends on how easy it is to get access to the software development kits from the manufacturer. Sony in particular is difficult to get access to their SDKs and get them to work well, which is one of the key reasons why a lot of the Sony cameras are not supported. So,
even though they use Sony sensors, which is funny. I'm trying to look for Josh Kovach's. He has a question. What's a good planetary stacking software on Mac? And I'm trying. The only thing I can really come up with is Serial or Serial,
Planetary stacking on
SIRIL.
Mac. Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The good
I
thing
don't use a
about
Mac at all. There's a reason why I don't use a Mac is that because the software availability for astrophotography using a Mac is a
Photoshop.
lot limited. Yeah.
You have
I mean, you can
Photoshop.
Well, not for stacking.
not for
Cool. The
stacking.
idea,
Yeah.
So to stack that, you need to take the video frames and then turn them into a single image. And for the PC, you've got Auto Stacker and Registacks and PIPP and
Well,
It
you
also
can
depends
use
on.
you can use
It
the
also depends
HDR
on.
function in Photoshop, and that should combine the pixels somewhat. It's not going to be what you're after, but it will do it.
Yeah. But I mean, with Macs, you have depending on which Mac you have. If it's got the M1 chip, then you can't do this. But if it doesn't have the M1 chip, you can do what's called Boot Camp, which you can run
Windows.
Windows on it, and then you can download whatever you want. It's basically you're opening up another
Computer,
ability
basically.
to basically another
Yeah.
computer. Yeah, as the ominous voice says.
it is. Yeah, it is. It is.
Disembodied
It is a
voices.
real. It is a challenge, because that's a lot of people, even though they're Mac users, etc., will actually use Windows software. So what's this from Wade? Is there any room
Wade
within the body of the AM5 to run internet cabling? It would be nice to see all port users using the built-in saddle. So yeah, the answer is Wade. I took the plate off. No, it's really full in there. But like a lot of the stuff that we've built, I'm sure there'll be future versions of it, and I'm not guaranteeing that there will be one. But one of the key things that we fed back was, let's have a mount with ports in the saddle, power, network, USB, etc. So I'm with you. If we get a future version of the AM series mount, then I want an observatory class mount with power, network, etc., USB through the deck, and I'm with you there. But yeah, actually, it's really hard when you look at the AM5 and the way that it is actually mounted. There is no hole through the deck like an Ioptron, for example. On the CM60, CM70, you can actually feed a cable down and through. The saddles have the connectors as well. There's nothing like that on the AM5. It is really solid. It's bolted to the gearbox. So that's a little challenge as well, because it doesn't actually go. You don't have a post with a bearing on it like a normal equatorial mount. It's
Any recommendations for ensuring Wi-Fi range on ASI Air as the mount is rotating?
Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the most challenging aspect of astrophotography.
Especially if you live in
outside.
a huge neighborhood. It's a menace.
Yeah, so if you
really
live in a
is.
built-up area with a lot of traffic, then interference on Wi-Fi is inevitable. So prime example is Tyler. Tyler has got access points on his house, and he's surrounded by houses and still has problems connecting, even though he has 5-bar signals. The interference is still there because of the channel allocation. So Wi-Fi, one of the things that I would recommend is that if you have an ASI Air Plus with the antenna, don't rely on your house Wi-Fi router, which is probably somewhere in the house and the signal outside is iffy. I actually installed a TP-Link Armada, which is a mesh network, and I put that outside, and I have really good internet. I don't have an issue with Wi-Fi connectivity, but I live in the country, so I have a very low Wi-Fi usage. If you have Pro, then buy an extender. So there is extenders on the website, the VoNets one, for example. But again, still look at where your router is located in the house, and don't rely on the home routers for Wi-Fi.
No.
A prime example of that is that we have our internet service provider provides a Huawei router as the core router, as part of the what we call CPE, the customer equipment, and that is absolutely terrible at streaming. It can't stream a Netflix, for example, stream. I include the TP-Link Armada, and that is really, really good, and I can connect perfectly to that. But it's a real hard. That one there, Josh, phones detecting the ASI in station mode. If it's an iPhone, for example, and the Android, they have this weird tool, which is basically I can't remember what they call it in the iPhone. It's something like Network Helper or
is it Auto Join?
Yeah, something like, not auto join, which is one to turn off as well. Make sure you're not auto joining other networks. If the signal on your house system is better than the ASI Air, for example, it will fail over to the house again. There is some kind of weird setting on the iPhone. TJ manages a lot of the iPhone queries, but there is something that is network assistance or network helper or something like that it's called, and this really can't this really messes up your connection, so turn that off as well. Max,
So I don't like Macs. They're great.
I'm not really good with Mac, but
I'm not good with them.
Probably find that it's something to do with the DHCP and picking up that with the IP address from the ASI Air, but turn off that network assistant, network helper, or whatever it's called.
Josh, one thing you could try, it's probably fairly inexpensive, is the Wi-Fi extender. See if that helps. Maybe boost the range a little bit. And also try to take it out somewhere. Take it out somewhere away from the city to see if that actually fixes the problem, because that kind of eliminates, and it's an actual test that you can do, is it the neighborhood area that's causing the problem, or is it possibly the ASI Air is just dropping connection? That's some of the tests you have to do.
A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the ASI Air," or whatever. I had the same problems with my Prima Lucha Eagle.
Yep, I have. Sometimes mine drops.
Even my Chrome box has the same problem. Just sometimes drops off the network or can't access it. Yeah, it's a real problem.
Dang it.
There's no easy answer to Wi-Fi issues, and you got to go through it and really troubleshoot. Making sure you've got a really good signal. I dedicate a Wi-Fi channel through my TP-Link mesh system, even to Astrophotography, and keep that traffic away from my wife streaming Netflix or whatever.
That's your actual Wi-Fi channel. You've done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up because I have to go do a solar/lunar party right now. So I wish we could have had some more guests in. There was an issue with the restream or something with the bot. Yeah.
I don't know. They weren't able to comment on
It was just comments weren't feeding through. It looks like there was no views, but now we're actually getting viewers at the end of the show. But the good thing is we are 24/7. You can watch this again. That's the beauty part.
Next week.
You can watch this again.
You can watch this again next week.
Yeah. But Josh,
hey, look, if you the main thing is if people have issues and problems, jump onto Facebook. We've got the ZWO forum for cameras. We've got the ZWO forum for the mount. We've got one for the ASI Air. Reach out, and I get lots of questions like, "Does this lens work with this, or does this adapter work with this? Does this mirrorless or DSLR camera work with the ASI Air?" jump out and post on there and ask. I'm guaranteed that somebody will have tried it. And if you're still stuck, then check the website, check the documentation, and then always reach out to TJ and I. We'll help you as much as we can. We've got direct access into the developers and the engineers, so we can actually place a very quick call into China, and they'll give us a help. And they're very responsive. They're a great bunch. They're really keen to have a really good product, and so we. So if we can help, we will. And just sing out.
But all right, folks, tune in next week. I'll have to figure out who the guest is for next week for sure. Simon, I appreciate your time for being here, and I hope to see you again soon. Everybody else, take care. I'll catch you guys on the later.
Great. Catch you later.
Yeah.